All right, welcome to Wrestling Between Society. This podcast episode is kind of like my Elimination Chamber. You know, the Elimination Chamber is a warm-up towards WrestleMania. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be at WrestleMania, so what am I warming up towards? Well, a while back, I've been sharing how around March, I'm going to talk about the slap. I think a lot of you know what I refer to when I talk about the slap. You old timers might think about Dr. D slap around journalist John Stossel. Now that is a great example of what a slap is, because that's a real one. That was not something that was rehearsed, nor was it something that was staged. You see, John Stossel tried to be a little too noisy. He tried to pull back the curtain to expose professional wrestling. Now, he wasn't doing it so much for the audience. Let's get it straight. He was doing more for himself. He tried to be the guy that exposed professional wrestling. Why? Simple. Just like any marked journalist, he was trying to make a name for himself. Now, I see nothing wrong with it. I mean, I get it. You're climbing up that mountain. You're trying to get close to the top to try to get paid. Now, going back to the slap. The slap heard around the world happened last year. It was the one that Will Smith did towards Chris Rock. After he heard him insult his wife, and after he laughed at the insult, he decided to go on stage and smack Chris Rock. You see, what the whole world saw was a little bit of professional wrestling. When it comes to professional wrestling and TV, networks treat it like a evil stepchild. They treat it like Japheth from the book of Judges. Japheth was that stepchild that nobody needed around until they really need them around. You see, ever since video streaming has become a thing, networks are losing viewers. That's why they favor professional wrestling more than ever. They want that 1 billion WWE audience to watch their network. That's why you see more TV exposure of WWE. This past Super Bowl Sunday is a great example. You know, you see a lot of wrestlers in commercials, or quite a few wrestlers in a commercial. And what is Patrick Mahomes holding besides the Super Bowl trophy? A WWE title. Now let's be real. Professional athletes want to be WWE wrestlers. A while ago, a Kansas City Chiefs cut a promo like he was The Rock. He told the Cincinnati man to know your role and shut your mouth. Example of athletes want to be like WWE stars. There's a former NBA player. I see his face, but I don't know his name because it doesn't really matter. He was considered Superman after Shaquille O'Neal. If you remember his name, then you know the face. He's been trying to get into WWE. Sorry, I don't think a former NBA player is going to cut it. I mean, could you imagine somebody in his late 30s or 40s with a blown out back and busted knees trying to wrestle? The first bump he takes on that plywood, he's going to realize that he made a mistake. Now, Logan Paul is an exception. Logan Paul is a different type of animal. You see, before Logan Paul became a YouTube sensation, he was an amateur wrestler. And if there's any guys or any group of athletes that has a high chance of cutting professional wrestling, it's amateur wrestlers. I mean, you gotta remember, professional wrestling. Before it became entertainment, it was a form of shoot. It was a form of catch and can. You had guys like Lou Thesz. I'll go all the way back to Martin Burns, Frank Gotch. You even got the late, great Judo Gene LeBell, who was trained by Ed the Stranger Lewis. During those days, that was when wrestling was real. Wrestlers would take people at any time, any place, and whomever. They were prepared to beat anyone. And then later, you go back to the Buddy Rogers days, wrestling became more a form of entertainment. It became stage. It became like a Shakespeare, and it drew audiences to watch it. And then you have television, and then you have the internet. So people worldwide know professional wrestling because of WWE. You see, pro wrestling is that stepchild that people need. Well, the Oscars, unlike professional wrestling, have been tanking viewers. Nobody watches it because nobody cares. So how can you get people to care? You need a little shock bump. You need a little shock treatment. So what do? You have Will Smith smack Chris Rock. If you've seen the footage, then you could probably see that, the arm that Will Smith used to slap was hit by his other arm for the sound. Remember, these guys are actors. They've been acting for a long time. They know how to take a slap, just as like a professional wrestler knows how to take a bump or a hit. They sold it. And afterwards, Chris Rock says that he's not talking to anybody until he gets his money. That right there of the Oscar slap was professional wrestling. Oscars tried to benefit with a wrestling angle, and it kind of succeeded because everyone talked about it. Everyone talked what happened at the Oscars. They didn't talk about who won the trophy. They talked about the slap. It got people's attention. People were tuned in. They used a little bit of professional wrestling for the Oscar slap. And that's the slap that I've been talking about. You see, society includes professional wrestling, even though they may try to ignore it until they really need it. And I'm Johnny Alpha, and you're listening to Wrestling Between Society. Woo! What's causing all this?